He wasn't supposed to look at her. Across that marble hall, the Billionaire Mafia air froze. 1 second, she was invisible, a maid polishing his father's empire of glass. The next, her eyes caught his, and something ancient, dangerous, alive cracked between them. Every rule he was raised on burned to the floor. Because in that moment, Luca DeLuca didn't see a servant. He saw the one woman in this house who wasn't afraid of him. And that made her a target. What happens next will decide who survives this love. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The DeLuca mansion was the kind of place that whispered power even when it slept. Marble floors so white they hurt the eyes. Chandeliers like frozen rain. Every breath of the air smelled faintly of money and danger. Grace learned early how to move through it like a shadow. Her shoes made no sound as she polished the banisters before sunrise. Her hands, small, graceful, precise, had memorized every surface of this house, from the dusty corners of the servants' wing to the cold perfection of the grand dining hall. She had worked here for 3 years and still hadn't been spoken to by the family more than a handful of times. That was fine by her. Silence meant safety. But lately, she'd begun to wonder if silence was just another kind of cage. When she stepped out onto the back terrace, dawn was spilling gold over the Hudson. For a brief second, she allowed herself to breathe in the view. The city below, the skyline sharp against the light, before pulling herself back to reality. The first rule of working for the DeLucas was simple: don't be seen unless summoned. And yet, sometimes she caught herself wishing she would be. In another part of the city, the kind that thrummed with dark deals and expensive suits, Luca DeLuca was already awake. He sat in the back seat of a black Maybach, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, lethal. If he talks to the feds again, make sure he doesn't have a tongue left to do it with. He hung up before his bodyguard could respond. To the world, Luca was the perfect heir, ruthless, efficient, born for command. The DeLuca empire didn't run on democracy. It ran on fear, and Luca carried it like a second skin. But beneath the designer suit and calculated calm, he was suffocating. Every time he looked in the mirror, he saw his father's reflection, a man whose soul was made of cruelty. And the thought terrified him. When his car pulled into the long driveway of the family mansion, Luca rubbed the back of his neck. He hated coming here, hated pretending this place was home. Inside, servants straightened as he passed. No one met his eyes. He liked it that way. Or at least, he told himself he did. Grace was polishing silver in the dining hall when the double doors swung open. She froze, the weight of a dozen unspoken rules pressing down on her shoulders. Luca walked in. He didn't see her at first. He was on the phone, pacing, anger in his every step. I don't care what it costs. He dies tonight. His voice was ice. When he hung up, silence filled the hall like smoke. That's when he noticed her. Grace tried to look away, but his eyes caught hers. It was only a heartbeat. A single, impossible second. But in that second, the air changed. He looked at her not the way men in this house usually looked at maids, with dismissal or desire, but with curiosity. Something flickered behind his gaze, something unreadable. Grace dropped her eyes quickly, but her pulse betrayed her. He walked past without a word. Yet as he did, she could feel his attention like heat on her skin. When the door closed behind him, Grace exhaled the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Later that night, the staff gathered in the basement for dinner. Plastic trays, laughter too loud, the scent of overcooked stew filling the air. Grace sat quietly at the end of the table, spoon untouched. "Girl, you hear the boss's son's back?" whispered her friend Tasha, the cook's assistant. "They say he killed a man with his bare hands." Grace managed a faint smile. "They say that about all of them." But this one, Tasha leaned closer, voice dropping. This one's different. Cold eyes, rich temper. Stay out his way. Grace nodded, even though she already knew she couldn't. Something about that look earlier had unsettled her. Not because of who he was, but because, for a moment, she thought he'd seen her. And that scared her more than anything else. The next morning, Grace was sent upstairs to clean the upper hall, the private quarters of the family. She hated going there. The walls seemed to hum with secrets, and the portraits of long-dead DeLucas watched her every move. As she dusted the railing, she heard voices from behind the closed study door, Luca's and his father's. Vincent DeLuca, you're getting sloppy, boy. That's not how you run an empire. Luca, maybe I don't want your empire. Vincent, you think you have a choice? Something crashed, glass, maybe, followed by silence. Grace froze. Then footsteps. Heavy fast. The door opened. Lucas stepped out, his expression tight with anger. For a second, their eyes met again. This time, neither looked away. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Neither should you. She answered before she could stop herself. He blinked. Then a faint, almost amused smile touched his lips. It was the first time anyone had spoken to him without fear in years. He walked past her, and the smell of his cologne lingered. Sharp, clean, dangerous. Grace pressed her hand to her chest after he left, as if trying to calm the storm he'd left behind. That night, Lucas sat alone on the balcony outside his bedroom, the city's lights flickering like dying stars. His father's words still echoed in his head. You think you have a choice? He thought of Grace, her calm eyes, her quiet defiance. He didn't know why she haunted him. Maybe because she didn't belong in his world. Or maybe because she did, the part of it that still remembered what humanity felt like. Below him, in the servants' quarters, Grace knelt to scrub the last floor of the night. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the marble, tired eyes, strong hands. She whispered a prayer she didn't fully believe anymore. Lord, don't let me be noticed. And somewhere above her, Luca whispered into the dark. Lord, don't let me forget her. 2 prayers. 1 night. And fate, listening, smiled. For 2 weeks, Luca's voice was heard but not seen in the mansion. Rumors flowed through the staff halls, a shootout downtown, the boss's son wounded, the family tightening its circle. When the housekeeper quit out of fear, Grace's name appeared on the replacement slip. Clean as sweet. Twice a day. No eye contact. No questions. Her stomach nodded as she climbed the marble staircase to the east wing. The door to his quarters stood slightly ajar. Inside, the air was heavy with antiseptic and silence. Lucas sat in a dim chair near the window, his left arm bandaged. Shadows cut across his face. The glow from the skyline limned him in cold light. He didn't look up when she entered, only said, "Leave the tray and go." His voice was rougher than before, edged with exhaustion. Grace placed the tray on the side table. "Yes, sir." Her hand brushed a book lying open, The Divine Comedy. For a man like him to read about hell felt almost ironic. When she turned to leave, his gaze caught hers in the glass reflection. "What's your name?" "Grace." He tasted the syllables. "Grace." A faint smile. "Does it suit you?" She hesitated. "I will try to make it." He chuckled once, then winced, a small sound of pain that broke the moment's chill. Instinct took over. She fetched the medical box left on the dresser. "I can change the dressing, if you'd like." He watched her warily but nodded. As she peeled the old gauze away, he didn't flinch. But when her fingertips grazed his skin, warm against the scars, his breath caught. Their faces were close enough for her to see the weariness beneath his arrogance. "You're not afraid of me?" he asked. "Should I be? Most people are." "I'm not most people." Something electric settled between them, fragile but undeniable. Days passed. Grace came and went with silent efficiency, but Luca found himself timing his days to her footsteps. She cleaned in rhythm, the swish of her cloth across glass, the faint hum under her breath. When she wasn't there, the silence felt heavier. He told himself it was the boredom of recovery. He knew it was a lie. One afternoon, thunder rolled outside. Rain lashed the windows. She entered with a towel over her head, soaked from the storm. Luca rose too fast and hissed in pain. "Sit down before you tear the stitches again," she scolded without thinking. He obeyed. The first time in years he'd taken an order without resentment. "You always talk to your boss like that?" "Only when he bleeds on my clean floor." Her boldness startled him and disarmed him. He laughed, low and real. She smiled back, fleeting but luminous. That smile haunted him through the night. A week later, she entered to find him reading again, his sleeve rolled up. The scar beneath the bandage was healing, but ugly. "It'll fade," she said quietly. "I hope it doesn't." "Why?" "Because then I'd forget what it cost." Grace didn't answer. She understood too well the price of surviving. He set the book down. "You know, I don't even know what you see when you look at me. Someone trying not to drown. And you? Someone who can't swim but keeps getting pulled into the deep." Silence. Then the faint hum of thunder again, softer this time. When she turned to leave, he whispered, "Thank you, Grace." She paused at the door. "For what?" "For not looking away." The door clicked shut, but his heartbeat didn't slow for a long time. Later that night, Grace sat by the servant's window, the rain tapping the glass. She told herself she was foolish. Men like Luca DeLuca didn't notice maids. They consumed them. And yet his eyes had been different, searching, almost lost. Down the hall, Luca stood before his mirror, touching the edge of the healing wound. He imagined her fingers there instead of his own. He'd faced death without blinking. But this gentle ache, frightened him more than any bullet ever had. Can love begin in a place built on power and fear, or does it always end in pain? Grace told herself it was only a job. Nothing more, nothing less. She'd worked in enough rich homes to know the rules of survival. Keep your head down, your words few, and your heart locked. But lately, her heart refused to listen. Every time Luca's voice carried through the hall, low, smooth, dangerous, something in her trembled. When he was injured, she saw him weak. When he began to heal, she saw the man behind the name, and that was the problem. Now she avoided his suite unless absolutely necessary. Still, avoidance had a cruel sense of humor. Every corridor seemed to lead to him. Luca noticed the change before he admitted it to himself. He'd catch glimpses of Grace from afar, in the garden, in the kitchen doorway, always looking away too fast. He tried to dismiss it. He had bigger things to worry about. A police investigation tightening around his operations, his father breathing down his neck. But when the night fell silent, he'd find himself replaying her voice. Soft, steady, brave. He hated it. He wasn't supposed to feel anything. So he tried to drown it. In business, in whiskey, in women whose names he didn't care to remember. None of it worked. One evening, when he returned home from a tense meeting, he found her in the hallway, cleaning a vase. She startled when he appeared. "You've been avoiding me," he said flatly. "No, sir. Just busy." "Don't call me that." She froze. "Then what should I call you?" "Luca." She shook her head. "That's not wise. Neither is pretending I don't exist." Their eyes locked, and for a brief heartbeat, neither could look away. Then Grace bowed slightly. "Excuse me, Luca." She slipped past him, leaving him staring at the empty space she'd left behind. The next day, his father noticed his distraction. Vincent DeLuca was a man built from iron and blood, everything Luca was raised to become. He leaned across the desk, eyes sharp as razors. "You've been sloppy lately." "I'm fine." "No, you're weak. I see it in your eyes. Don't tell me it's over some girl in this house." Luca didn't answer, and that silence was answer enough. "You forget who you are, boy. Servants are replaceable. The family is not." The threat hung like smoke. Luca left the room with a storm in his chest. That night, Grace almost quit. She packed her few belongings, a worn Bible, her mother's scarf, a handful of cash, and stood by the window of her small room. Leaving would mean safety. Staying meant danger, not just from Luca's world, but from what her heart was beginning to crave. When she closed her eyes, she could still hear his voice. "Don't call me sir." She sat down, buried her face in her hands, and whispered, "Lord, what am I doing?" The next morning, she was cleaning the grand hallway when she began humming softly, a habit she developed to calm herself. The melody was low, haunting, half prayer, half lullaby. Lucas stepped out of his office mid-conversation and froze. The sound wrapped around him like smoke. He hadn't heard anything so human in that house in years. "That song," he said quietly. "Where did you learn it?" Grace jumped, turning toward him. "It's just an old hymn. My mother used to sing it." "Sing it again." "I'm working. Please." The word please startled them both. Her eyes softened, but she shook her head. "You don't understand, Luca. You live in a world that breaks people like me. Maybe I'm already broken." Her throat tightened. "Then fix yourself before you try to find pieces of me." She walked away, leaving him standing in the echo of her song. Later that night, Lucas sat alone at the piano in the family's music room, a place no one used anymore. He pressed a few keys, searching for the melody she'd hummed. It came out uneven, halting, but it calmed him in a way money never had. Across the house, Grace tried to sleep but couldn't. The storm outside mirrored the one inside her chest. She rose, wrapped her mother's scarf around her shoulders, and stared at the ceiling. She whispered, "You're a fool, Grace. He's dangerous." Yet her heart answered, "He's human." The following day, they crossed paths again in the garden. She was pruning roses. He was on the phone, giving orders. The call ended abruptly when she pricked her finger on a thorn. Without thinking, he took her hand. "You're bleeding." She tried to pull away. "It's nothing." But he held her hand gently, thumb brushing the drop of blood. His voice softened. "Even roses have teeth." Her pulse stuttered. "And they still die when winter comes." Their eyes met, defiance and longing in equal measure. Then she pulled away. "You should stay away from me." "I've been trying." "Try harder." She walked off before he could answer. He stood there, the scent of roses and iron in the air, realizing she'd become the one thing he couldn't control. The attack came without warning. It was a Sunday evening, quiet, the mansion pulsing with soft jazz and the smell of roast lamb from the kitchen. Grace was wiping the silver when the first explosion cracked through the air. The lights blinked, glass shattered, and someone screamed downstairs. Then gunfire. She dropped to the floor as the chandelier trembled above her head. Men shouted orders in Italian. Footsteps thundered toward the hall. Grace crawled beneath the grand table, heart slamming so hard she could hear nothing else. Moments later, Luca burst through the doorway, pistol in hand, blood on his shirt. He spotted her, crouched, terrified. Their eyes locked. "Come with me," he barked. She didn't move. "Grace now." He grabbed her hand, pulling her through the corridor as bullets cracked against marble. They darted through the service wing, the smell of smoke and gunpowder filling their lungs. He led her to a steel door hidden behind a wine rack. Pressed a code. The door slid open to reveal a narrow, safe room lined with monitors and stored supplies. When it sealed behind them, the world fell silent except for their ragged breathing. Grace leaned against the wall, trembling. What is happening?" "My father's enemies," Lucas said, holstering the weapon. "They finally decided to come knocking." Her voice shook. "We're going to die here. Not if I can help it." He paced the small room, adrenaline burning through him. She watched him, both furious and frightened. "This is your life?" she whispered. "This is the world you choose." He stopped, met her gaze. "I didn't choose it. I was born into it." "Then why stay?" "Because leaving gets people killed. People are dying because you don't leave." The words cut him deeper than he expected. He sank onto the bench beside her, rubbing his temples. "You don't know what it's like to carry a name that decides everything for you." "Maybe not," she said softly. "But I know what it's like to have a name no one remembers." Silence fell. The emergency light flickered red over their faces, painting them like two halves of the same wound. Hours passed. The gunfire outside faded to distant echoes. Grace finally spoke. "Are we safe now?" "For the moment." "Then why do you still look like you're fighting?" He looked at her, really looked. "Because I can't protect what I care about. Not in this life." Her breath caught. "And what is it you care about?" He didn't answer. His eyes told her. The air between them tightened, a magnetic pull neither could escape. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured. "How should I look at you?" "Like I'm something you can keep." He stepped closer, stopping just inches away. "Maybe I don't want to keep you. Maybe I just don't want to forget you." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the ventilation system filled the silence. Grace could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint mix of smoke and cologne on his skin. Her heartbeat slowed, then quickened again. "I don't trust you," she whispered. "Good," he said. "You shouldn't." But his voice trembled when he added, "I trust you." She closed her eyes, torn between fear and a tenderness she didn't want to name. They sat in that cramped room through the night. He dozed for a while, his shoulder brushing hers, and she found herself studying his face. The vulnerability that sleep revealed, the boy buried beneath the air. When he stirred, she whispered, "You talk in your sleep." "What did I say?" "You said my name." He gave a faint, rueful smile. "I was probably apologizing." "For what?" "Existing." Her throat tightened. "Don't. You're not your father. You don't know what I've done." "Maybe not. But I see what you could be." He stared at her as though the words were light in a tunnel he'd been trapped in for years. By morning, the all-clear came through the radio. Luca checked the monitor. His men had contained the attack. He stood, holstered his weapon, then offered her his hand. "It's over." Grace hesitated before taking it. When their palms met, the contact was simple, but something inside both shifted. Trust born in danger, fragile yet real. As they stepped out into the smoke-stained hallway, she said quietly, "You saved my life." "No," he replied. "You reminded me it was worth saving." The house was chaos around them, sirens wailing, staff crying, glass everywhere. But for a fleeting heartbeat, the noise faded. There was only them, two survivors standing amid ruin, hearts pounding in sync. If you were trapped in the dark with someone who terrified you and comforted you at the same time, speech balloon, would you run when the door opened, or stay to see what that fear might become? Comment below. The mansion bore the aftermath of the attack like an open wound, broken glass, burned marks, and silence heavy as fog. Staff whispered of vendettas and warnings. The DeLuca name, once untouchable, had been scarred. Grace worked quietly, cleaning the fragments of another man's empire, pretending she didn't notice the tension curling through every corner. But she noticed Luca. He moved differently now, slower, quieter. He didn't bark orders anymore, he asked. Sometimes he didn't speak at all. Something in him had cracked open in that safe room, and she could feel it every time he looked her way. One evening, a storm rolled in again. The house was nearly empty, most of the staff dismissed early. Grace lingered, humming softly as she scrubbed the marble floors. A faint sound stopped her. Piano music. It floated down the corridor, hesitant, searching, familiar. She followed it to the music room. Lucas sat at the grand piano, head bowed, fingers pressing tentative chords. The same hymn she'd hummed days ago. She leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "You've been practicing." He looked up, surprised but smiling faintly. "You make it sound like I'm learning to breathe again." "Maybe you are." He gestured to the bench beside him. "Play with me." "I don't play." "Then teach me to listen." Her laugh was soft but real. She sat beside him, and for a moment, the storm outside faded. Their hands brushed across the keys. Half an hour later, the lights flickered, a lightning strike somewhere nearby. When they steadied again, Grace noticed something on the piano, an old photo frame tucked behind a candle. It showed a smiling black woman in a maid's uniform, holding a small child. Luca, maybe 5 years old. Grace froze. Who was that? Luca's eyes darkened. Her name was Naomi. She worked for us a long time ago. What happened to her? He hesitated. My father said she stole from the family. She disappeared. I was too young to understand then, but I remember she used to sing the same hymn you do. The room went utterly still. Grace's breath caught. What was her last name? Brown, I think. Grace's chest constricted so sharply it hurt. Her voice came out a whisper. Naomi Brown was my mother. Luca went rigid. Their eyes locked. Disbelief, shock, dread. The storm outside seemed to roar louder. That's not possible, he said, though his voice already knew it was. It is. She worked for a family in New York. She never told me which one. Only that she had to run because the man she worked for accused her of something she didn't do. Lucas stood, pacing, hand in his hair. My father. Your father ruined her. Grace's voice shook. We lost everything. She died cleaning hotel rooms to survive. I came here to start over, and now I find out I walked into the house that destroyed her life. He looked shattered. Grace, I swear to you, I didn't know. You carry his name, and I've spent my whole life trying to escape it. Then why are you still here? He turned to her, anguish raw in his face. Because I thought I could fix what he broke. But maybe I'm just the same as him. Don't say that. It's true. He slammed his fist against the piano, the sound echoing like thunder. Every deal I make, every dollar I earn, it's bloodstained. And now I find out your pain came from my family's hands. How am I supposed to look at you? Tears blurred her vision. The same way you did when you didn't know, with honesty. They stood there, both trembling, bound by a history neither chose but now couldn't escape. Later, Grace sat alone in her small room, clutching her mother's old scarf. The memories came like ghosts, her mother's songs, the nights she cried herself to sleep, the whispered warnings to never trust the rich. She whispered to the empty air, Mama, what do I do now? Down the hall, Luca poured himself a drink he didn't touch. He stared at the piano, the photo, the truth. He finally understood why Grace's presence had felt like penance and salvation at once. The next morning, he found her in the garden. The sky was pale after rain. She didn't look at him when he approached. Grace, he said softly, I can't undo the past, but I can make sure it doesn't win. She turned, eyes tired but burning. And how do you plan to do that? By destroying the man who made it. Her breath hitched. You'd go against your father? I already am. For the first time, she saw something different in him, not just defiance, but conviction. And though she didn't say it, a small part of her wanted to believe him. That night, she dreamed of her mother singing in the same mansion, sunlight on her face, little Luca laughing nearby. When she woke, tears wet her cheeks, and for the first time, she didn't feel only anger. She felt understanding. Maybe fate hadn't brought her here for revenge. Maybe it was for redemption. If you discovered the person you loved carried the sins of your family's past, speech balloon, would you forgive them, or would you walk away to protect your peace? Days passed like ripples after a storm, slow, uncertain, yet peaceful in ways neither of them expected. The mansion had quieted. Repairs began. Guards rotated silently through the gates. Vincent DeLuca was gone on business, though everyone knew what that meant. A man hunting whoever dared touch his empire. Grace worked again, but differently. No longer invisible. Every morning, she'd find fresh flowers left near her cleaning supplies. Every evening, Luca would find the piano keys polished, her scarf forgotten on the bench. They were both pretending not to see each other, and both failing beautifully. One afternoon, he found her in the greenhouse. She stood among rows of orchids, sunlight pouring through the glass. Her hands were dirty with soil, her face serene. You shouldn't sneak up on people like that, she said without turning. I wasn't sneaking, he replied softly. I just didn't want to break whatever peace you found here. She smiled faintly. You sound like someone trying to make amends. Maybe I am. For your father? For everything. She turned, brushing dirt from her hands. You can't fix history with flowers and apologies. Then tell me how. You listen. You learn. You do better. He nodded, Then after a pause, "Can I start by helping you with those?" She arched a brow. "These are orchids, not weapons." "Good. I'm tired of handling the latter." He rolled up his sleeves and knelt beside her. Their hands brushed in the soil. It was the simplest thing, the most human thing either had done in years. When evening fell, they lingered, surrounded by the scent of earth and life. Grace leaned back against the glass wall. "I used to help my mom in the garden," she said quietly. She said plants forgive easily. You forget to water them. They wilt, but give them love again and they grow. She sounds like she deserved better. She did, but she still believed people could change. Even men like your father. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. "I didn't. Not until you." The words hung in the humid air, fragile and true. He took a breath. "Grace, if I ever become him, promise me you'll walk away." "You're not him, Luca. You don't know what's inside me." "I know what isn't." Their eyes locked. The space between them disappeared. He reached up, brushing a streak of dirt from her cheek with his thumb. "You should hate me. Maybe I did. And now I just see a man who's learning how to love without control." He smiled, a small, broken, beautiful thing. That night, they shared dinner in the kitchen, not the grand dining hall, but the small servant's space near the back. Grace cooked. Luca insisted on setting the table. "You sure you've done this before?" she teased as he fumbled with the napkins. "I've given orders my whole life," he said. "Never folded one." They laughed, the sound light, real, almost ordinary. When she set the meal down, roasted chicken, herbs, and bread, he watched her with quiet awe. "No one's ever cooked for me because they wanted to," he said. "Then consider this your first." They ate in silence, the air warm, soft, alive. Halfway through, he said, "Grace, if I could trade every dollar, every gun, every secret, just for one more evening like this, I would." "Then maybe that's what love really is," she said. "Choosing peace when the world expects war." He reached across the table, brushed her fingers with his. Neither pulled away. Later, under the dim light of the hallway, she turned to leave. "Grace," he said quietly. She stopped. "I don't deserve you." "Good," she said. "Then maybe you'll fight to become someone who does." He smiled. "That's exactly what I'm doing." She hesitated, then added, "I don't know what's coming, Luca, but I'm not running anymore." "Then I'll make sure you never have to." That night, she fell asleep humming her mother's hymn again, and this time, Luca joined in from down the hall, his voice faint, unsure, but filled with hope. For the first time since either could remember, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt alive. Do you believe love can heal the wounds left by the people who broke us? Or does forgiveness take more than love alone? Speech balloons, share your thoughts below. Can two broken souls truly fix each other, or just learn to live softer? The peace didn't last. It never does in houses like the DeLuca estate. A week later, the mansion hummed with tension again. Men whispering, phones ringing, doors locking. Grace could feel it in the air like static before a storm. Something was wrong. When she passed the study, she heard raised voices. Vincent DeLuca had returned. "You think you can fix what's mine?" Vincent's voice thundered. "You think I don't know what you've been doing behind my back?" Luca's reply was low, restrained. "Your back deserves to be turned. I'm done running your blood business. I'm cleaning it out. You're cleaning nothing. You're weak because of that girl." Grace froze. Her mother was a thief, Vincent spat. "And you're making the same mistake she did, thinking love makes you righteous." The crash of glass shattered the argument. Grace stumbled back before they saw her, heart hammering. He knows. Vincent knew about her mother, about her, and now Luca was in danger because of her very existence. That night, she packed her bags again. Not because she wanted to, because she had to. If she stayed, she'd destroy him. If she left, she'd save him. It was cruel arithmetic, but she knew no other way. Luca found her in the servant's wing as she zipped her suitcase. "You're leaving. It's better this way." "Better for who?" "For you. For both of us." He stepped closer, eyes burning. Don't you dare decide that for me. You don't understand, Luca. Your father knows everything. About my mother, about me, about us. He'll use me to control you. Let him try. You'll lose everything. Then at least I'll lose it for something that finally mattered. She shook her head, tears spilling. You're talking like a man who wants to die for love. He caught her wrist, desperate. No, I'm talking like a man who's finally living because of it. Her voice broke. I can't let you do this. Then stay. Luca, stay. His voice cracked. Please. She stared into his eyes, saw the man beneath the air, the boy beneath the name. And for the first time, she couldn't find strength in her love. Only terror. She whispered, I can't. Then she slipped her hand free and walked away. Luca didn't chase her. He couldn't. He watched her leave through the front gates, her figure swallowed by the night. Something inside him broke, the kind of break that doesn't bleed, just empties. When his father entered moments later, Luca was standing by the piano, still as stone. She's gone, Vincent said, satisfied. For now, Luca replied quietly. You'll thank me someday. No, Luca said, voice flat as ice. I'll bury you. Vincent's laugh was cruel. You'd turn on your own blood for a maid? I'd turn on the devil for a chance at peace. The older man stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You've already lost her, boy. Let her go. She's not yours to take. Luca walked away, but the fury inside him was white-hot, a storm waiting to tear free. Meanwhile, Grace boarded a bus out of the city, her mother's scarf clutched tight. Rain streaked the windows like tears she refused to shed. Every part of her screamed to go back, but her mother's voice echoed in her head. Some love saves you. Some love burns the whole world down. She didn't know which kind hers was. Days blurred into one another. Grace found work at a diner on the city's edge, trying to forget the smell of Luca's cologne, the sound of his laugh, the way he said her name like it was a prayer. But forgetting him was like trying to stop the sea from reaching the shore. Every thought returned to him, and every night, when she closed her eyes, she dreamed of the garden, of his hands in the soil beside hers. Back in the mansion, Luca spiraled. He stopped attending meetings, stopped sleeping. He fired half his father's men and replaced them with his own loyal crew. We're cleaning house, he told them. Every last drop of dirty blood money, gone. But rage and heartbreak were poor fuel for revolution. One evening, drunk and exhausted, he sat at the piano and pressed a single note. It sounded hollow, just like him. He whispered into the silence, Grace. I'm sorry. Outside, thunder rolled again, as if the heavens themselves remembered their story. The piano note lingered, echoing down empty halls. And somewhere, miles away, Grace paused mid-step on a rain-soaked street, suddenly feeling the weight of a memory she couldn't shake, a name whispered in her dreams. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved? Not because you stopped caring, but because loving them meant losing yourself? Speech balloon comment below. Which hurts more, staying in danger or leaving your heart behind? 1 month later, the city had changed its skin again, colder, quieter, gray with winter. Grace walked to work every morning before sunrise, the world still half asleep. She wore her mother's scarf tucked tight around her throat, its edges frayed but warm. The diner smelled of coffee and burnt toast. It wasn't the mansion, and that was the point. She wanted normal. She wanted to be safe. But safety, she discovered, could be lonelier than danger. Every night, when she closed up, she would glance at the window's reflection, half expecting to see him there. Luca de Luca, the man who had upended her world with one look. She told herself he was gone, back to his empire, his violence, his family. But in the stillness between breaths, she could still feel the echo of his hand brushing hers, the sound of him saying her name like it mattered. It haunted her in ways she couldn't pray away. Across the city, Luca was unrecognizable. He'd dismantled half of his father's network, cut ties with men he'd grown up calling brothers. Every move drew blood. Every betrayal drew closer the wrath of Vincent de Luca. He didn't care. He'd lost Grace, the only person who had ever seen the man he could be. So, if he was going to burn, he'd burn trying to be worthy of the memory she left behind. Late one night, in the empty mansion, Lucas sat before the piano again. The photo of Naomi Brown, Grace's mother, still sat on the ledge. He traced the frame with his thumb. "You tried to protect her," he murmured to the picture. "Now it's my turn." He opened a small box beside him. Inside, an old pocket watch engraved with his family crest. He flipped it open, then crushed it in his fist. No more DeLuca bloodlines. No more sins passed down. He rose, grabbed his coat, and left. That same night, Grace was closing the diner when a black car pulled up across the street. Her stomach dropped. For a moment, she thought it was Luca. But when the driver stepped out, it wasn't him. It was an older man in a tailored suit, Vincent DeLuca. He approached her, calm and cold. "You're a hard woman to find, Ms. Brown." Grace froze. "What do you want?" "My son thinks he's some kind of saint now. He's been dismantling my business, turning my men. All for you." Her breath hitched. "That's not true, isn't it?" His smile was sharp as a blade. "He's burning his legacy for a maid's forgiveness." "You're lying." "Maybe. But if you ever cared for him, you'll tell him to stop. Because if he doesn't—" He leaned closer, his voice a whisper of death. "I'll finish what your mother started." Grace's blood ran cold. He left her standing in the rain, the sound of his footsteps fading like a curse. That night, Grace sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the phone. She wanted to call Luca, to warn him, to beg him to run. But pride and fear were cruel things. She picked up the phone, put it down, picked it up again. Finally, she whispered, "God, if I go back, don't let it destroy us." She dialed. Across the mansion, Luca's phone buzzed once on the piano. He answered without checking the caller ID. "Luca." Her voice, trembling, breathless. "It's me." He froze. "Grace, your father came to see me." "What?" "He knows where I work. He said he'll hurt you, and me, if you don't stop what you're doing." Silence. "Grace, listen to me." "Luca, don't. You have to leave. Please." "No. You don't understand. He'll kill you. Then he'll have to look me in the eye when he does." "Luca, I'm done running, Grace. I'm done letting him decide who I am. Then let me stand with you." "No," he said, voice cracking. "I can't lose you again." "You already did," she whispered. "And I'm still here." Silence filled the line, the kind that holds everything words can't. Then, softly, he said, "Come home." "That place isn't home. It is when you're in it." Grace closed her eyes. Her heart felt like it was trying to tear its way free. After a long pause, she said, "Then I'm coming." The call ended, but the choice had already been made. For both of them, love had stopped being a feeling. It was now a decision. A reckless, dangerous, beautiful decision. Would you risk everything, your safety, your peace, your future, to stand beside the one person who made you believe in love again? Speech balloon, tell me in the comments. When does love stop being worth the cost? The rain hadn't stopped in days. Grace stood outside the DeLuca gates, soaked to the bone, suitcase at her feet. Every instinct told her she shouldn't have come back. But she wasn't the same woman who left. She wasn't running anymore. She pressed the intercom. "It's Grace." The gates creaked open. Inside, the mansion glowed with candlelight, generators half working, shadows dancing along the walls. Luca waited in the foyer, black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights. When he saw her, he didn't move at first, just stared, like she was a dream his heart didn't trust. "You came back," he said softly. "You called it home," she replied. "So I did." He exhaled, tension melting from his shoulders. "I don't deserve this." "You don't," she said with a trembling smile. "But love isn't about deserving." He stepped closer, hands trembling slightly. "He's coming for me, Grace. You shouldn't be here. If he comes, he won't find you alone. You don't understand." "No," she interrupted. "For once, you listen. My mother spent her life running from men like your father. I'm done running. If this ends tonight, It ends with truth. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, there was no fear, only shared defiance. The echo of footsteps broke the silence. Vincent DeLuca entered from the hallway, flanked by 2 bodyguards. He looked at them like a man surveying a battlefield already won. How poetic, he sneered. The maid returns to the master's son. I should have seen this coming. Grace held her ground. Your empire is built on pain, Mr. DeLuca. Maybe it's time it crumbled. Vincent smirked. And what do you know of power, girl? Lucas stepped in front of her. Enough. You've hurt enough people for one lifetime. You think you can stop me? No, Lucas said. But I can choose not to become you. He reached into his jacket pocket, not for a gun, but for a small flash drive. Every deal, every shipment, every account tied to your name. It's all here. I've sent copies to every federal contact I have. Your reign ends tonight. Vincent's face twisted. You'd betray your own blood? To save what's left of my soul? Yes. The old man lunged forward, fury overtaking reason, but the guards hesitated, caught between 2 loyalties. And in that hesitation, the empire cracked. Vincent's shout echoed down the hall. You'll regret this. Maybe, Lucas said, his voice steady. But at least I'll finally be free. The police came hours later. When the sirens faded and the house emptied, dawn was breaking over the wet gardens. Lucas stood on the balcony, rain still dripping from the eaves. Grace joined him, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. It's over, she said quietly. It doesn't feel real. It will. He turned to her. He'll go to prison. And you? I'll rebuild. Clean. Honest. It won't be easy. Nothing worth keeping ever is. He smiled faintly. You always know the right thing to say. No, she whispered. I just know what broken feels like. And what healing can sound like. They walked into the garden together, where the orchids bloomed again despite the storm. Grace knelt, brushing a drop of water from a petal. See? Even after all that rain, they didn't drown. Luca crouched beside her. They learned to drink it instead. Their eyes met. For the first time, neither looked away. He reached for her hand. Grace, I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want to build it with you. Then let's plant it, she said softly. One truth at a time. He kissed her, slow, reverent, full of everything they had survived. 6 months later, the DeLuca mansion was no longer a fortress. It had become something quieter, softer. Luca had turned part of it into a shelter for women escaping violence, in honor of Naomi Brown. A plaque by the garden read, From blood to bloom, love always finds a way. Grace walked among the flowers, smiling as children played near the fountain. Behind her, Luca wrapped his arms around her waist. You know, I still can't believe you said yes. You asked me every day until I did. Persistence runs in the family. Let's hope kindness does too. He laughed, resting his chin on her shoulder. Do you ever regret staying? She turned, eyes bright. No, because for the first time, I'm not surviving. I'm living. They kissed again, sunlight breaking through the clouds, the garden alive around them. When love is tested by fire, does it burn away weakness or forge something stronger? Speech balloon, comment your thoughts. Do you believe even the darkest hearts can learn to love in the light? As the camera pulls back, the mansion stands bathed in dawn. The same house that once echoed with fear now hums with laughter, music, and life. And through the open window, the faint sound of a piano drifts on the morning air. The same hymn Naomi Brown once sang, now played by her daughter, and the man who finally learned what grace truly means.
Thank you for watching the story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So, do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.